There's something that has bothered me for a long time. And that's the fate of the 2010 game Enslaved Odyssey to the West. Players and critics loved it, yet it was largely overlooked. Now don't get me wrong, Enslaved isn't some forgotten masterpiece, but it was bursting with ideas that other games in the decade that followed would build upon and turn into massive successes. In a lot of ways, Enslaved was ahead of the curve. A diegetic HUD, state-of-the-art facial motion capture, strong characters and writing, and a colorful, lush vision of the post-apocalypse. And boy did we lack color during the 7th generation. But in other ways, Enslaved was painfully outdated, even back in 2010. Simple, hand-holdy platforming with no real stakes. Very limited combat and enemy variety. Linear to a fault. And a camera with a mind of its own. And that's exactly what makes it such an interesting game. It feels uniquely caught between two eras. Its mechanics still clung to the past, even as its storytelling reached for the future. A game both ahead of its time and stuck in the past. Enslaved was developed by Ninja Theory, who you might know from Hellblade and the Devil May Cry reboot. Before Enslaved, they worked on Heavenly Sword, a launch title for the PlayStation 3 that put Ninja Theory on the map as a promising developer with a knack for character and cinematic direction. They were also one of the first studios to incorporate full performance capture. While Naughty Dog was still only recording body movement for Uncharted, Ninja Theory was capturing voice, body and facial performances all at once. They even brought in Andy Serkis, the actor behind Gollum and King Kong, to play the villain. The game was well received critically, but underperformed commercially, and Sony ultimately wouldn't greenlight the sequel Ninja Theory had hoped to develop. It was a tough blow for the team, but director Tamim Antianades had another idea. A game based on the Chinese novel Journey to the West. In that novel, the monk Tripitaka leads a pilgrimage to the West to retrieve sacred Buddhist scriptures. He is accompanied by Sun Wukong, also known as the Monkey King, who has immense strength and can fly on a cloud, but is extremely reckless. Tripitaka places a headband on him that will cause him pain if he disobeys. That's the basic setup of the story. I haven't read the novel myself, so I can't speak to how faithful Enslaved is as an adaptation. From what I've read, it's just a loose interpretation. Ninja Theory took some of those elements and set them in a post-apocalyptic North America, 150 years in the future. Magic became technology and demons became military mechs. Their goal was to create a truly cinematic experience. The team felt that most games at the time still came across like B-movies compared to real films when it came to storytelling, and they wanted to bridge that gap. To bring that vision to life, Ninja Theory collaborated with two key figures who helped elevate the game to its full potential. One of those people was Andy Serkis. He came back from Heavenly Sword, this time as a co-director. But during development, he saw the concept art for Monkey and thought, that's a cool character, I want to play him. So he ended up stepping into the role himself, playing their version of Sun Wukong, simply called Monkey. Not only did he bring his motion capture expertise behind the camera, he also got to show off his acting chops in front of it. He even has another role in the game, which we'll get to later. In this adaptation, Tripitaka was reimagined as a young woman named Trip, played excellently by Lindsay Shaw. And rounding out the cast was Richard Ridings as Pixie, the comic relief who brings some much needed levity to the journey. The team refined the performance capture techniques they pioneered with Heavenly Sword, and it really paid off. Even after all these years, the characters' expressions and movement have a level of nuance that most games back then didn't come close to. Another key figure was writer Alex Garland. He's a huge gamer, but also a Hollywood screenwriter. By the time of Enslaved, he had already written 28 Days Later, The Beach and Sunshine, all films I absolutely loved. Today, you probably know him for Ex Machina, Annihilation or Civil War. The guy's truly great. Garland's role went beyond writing. He worked closely with the team on level design and pacing, making sure the story never lost its rhythm or momentum. For the world and art style, the team took inspiration from a show called Life After People, which imagined how major cities might decay if humans disappeared. Rather than lean into the grim, desolate visions common in post-apocalyptic media, they wanted a world that felt alive, imaginative and full of wonder. Their goal was a cinematic, almost Miyazaki-like quality, a setting that was believable yet richer and larger than life. The result is a post-apocalyptic world, a future where nature has reclaimed most of what humanity left behind. It's a vision that feels very reminiscent of a certain 2017 game with a red-headed protagonist fighting animal-like machines, don't you think? And speaking of deadly machines, if going up against them is your kind of fun, you'll definitely want to check out today's sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, and it's available now for free on PC, consoles and mobile. It's all about authenticity and dynamic battles, letting you take command of over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters and ships from 10 major nations, from modern vehicles all the way back to those of the 1920s. Each one is crafted with an incredible level of detail, right down to the sound effects. The game's been around for more than a decade and has built a massive community of over 95 million players, all engaging in high-intensity PvP combat. What I really like is how well optimized it is. It looks great on max settings, but it also runs smoothly on lower-end PCs. Like I said, the game is completely free on PC, consoles and mobile devices. And if you use my links in the description or the pinned comment below, new players and returning players who haven't played in the last 6 months will get a massive bonus pack available on PC and consoles only. That includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive Eagle of Valor decorator, 100,000 silver lions and 7 full days of premium account time. It's available for a limited time, so don't wait. Click the links and join the battle today. With all that being said, let's take a proper look at Enslaved. The game opens with Monkey trapped aboard a giant metal slave ship en route to a place called Pyramid. A young woman named Trip manages to break free from her cell, and in the chaos of her escape, she overloads the ship's systems, sending it hurling towards the ground. Trip secures the last escape pod, and Monkey fights and climbs his way through the wreckage to reach her. They both barely make it out alive. When Monkey comes to, he realizes he's wearing a slave headband that Trip has reprogrammed. It forces him to stay close to her, obey her commands, and if she dies, he dies. Trip's goal is simple: get back to her home village halfway across the country. But to survive the journey, she'll need Monkey's power and quick instincts. And so, the two set out together, an unlikely pair on a journey to the west. So, what do you actually do in the game? Enslaved has 2 core gameplay pillars, combat and platforming, broken up by cinematics and a few smaller sections in between. And while I was pretty harsh in the intro about the game's outdated mechanics, it actually does a great job with pacing. You never spend too long doing one thing. Before you can get tired of fighting, you're climbing. Before you get tired of climbing, you're back in combat. But if you take each part on its own, that's where the cracks begin to show. Combat revolves around Monkey's staff, part melee weapon, part energy cannon. Up close, he's got fast light attacks, slower heavy ones, and you can chain them into simple combos. There's a charge attack that breaks through shields, a big crowd clearing swing, and a focus attack powered by energy gained from landing hits. He can also block and counter. Some of these moves have to be unlocked by using energy orbs found throughout the levels and absorbed from defeated mechs. For ranged combat, Monkey's staff can shoot plasma to deal damage, or stun shots to knock out enemies and break their shields. Overall, it's a clean, polished system, but it never really goes anywhere. By the halfway mark, you've seen pretty much everything. Same combos, same handful of mechs. Standard, heavy, assault and electro. A few boss fights and the odd chance to use a mech's weapon against them mix things up a bit, but that's about it. What the game does nail is how the combat looks and sounds. Ninja Theory know how to sell an impact. Monkey's moves flow beautifully, and when you take out the last mech, the game cuts to a cinematic slow motion shot that still feels satisfying today. The same goes for the platforming. There are some truly epic set pieces that feel right out of Uncharted, and the sense of flow is fantastic. But the game stumbles in 2 big ways. First, it's almost impossible to fail these sections. Every ledge and pipe you can grab glows clearly, and Monkey will automatically latch on when you press jump. There's no real skill involved. You can't fall, you can't miss. The only time there's any tension is when hazards force you to time your jumps. Well-timed inputs do make the movement feel smoother, but still, you could practically do most of the platforming with your eyes closed. The second issue is that you can only jump at specific predetermined points. It completely breaks immersion when there's a clear path in front of you, but the game just won't let you take it. You are entirely on rails. And that's really what I meant earlier when I said the game feels stuck between 2 eras. Even by 2010, both combat and platforming had been done a lot better elsewhere. Still, Enslaved does a good job of keeping things varied enough to stay engaging. Throughout the game, you'll jump into short, one-off sequences, like a turret shootout on a boat, chasing or being chased by a giant mech, or a section where Trip drives a vehicle while you scramble for cover. None of them are especially deep, but they're fun distractions that break up the pacing nicely. At times, you'll need to solve light puzzles, like raising a bridge or blowing up an obstacle to clear the path. They're straightforward, but they give the game a pause from the action. A real highlight though is when Monkey gets to use his cloud, a floating disc that lets him surf across open areas that would otherwise be out of reach. There's a great sense of speed and freedom here, as the game finally lets go of its linearity for a bit. You can use gusts of wind for extra speed, pull off jumps, explore a little, and the music that plays during these sequences is fantastic. The boss fights, while not groundbreaking, pull everything together. They often mix the game's different systems, using the clouds, environmental hazards and ranged attacks into satisfying set pieces. So yeah, Enslaved plays it pretty safe in the overall gameplay department. But once you bring Trip into the mix, things start to get interesting. Escort missions are usually the bane of most players' existence, yet Ninja Theory built almost the entire game around one and somehow avoided all the usual pitfalls. You know what I mean, unreliable AI, awkward pacing, or companions who just get in your way. Trip doesn't do any of that. She's smart, capable, and actually helpful. You can tell her to move, but if it's not safe, she won't. She can deploy her decoy to draw fire, use a syringe to heal Monkey, and even upgrade his gear. She's never a burden. She keeps up, stays out of trouble, and always feels like part of the action.
Monkey, get up here.
What's even better is that the relationship goes both ways. Trip relies on Monkey just as much, to protect her, to lift her to higher ledges, to fling her across gaps, to clear paths forward. It's a rare case where an escort mission isn't just tolerable, but genuinely well designed. And while we're talking about things that are well designed, I feel like there's a real sense of cohesion throughout the entire experience. Take the main menu for example. It's Trip using one of her holographic projections. It immediately sets the tone. It's seamless and grounded in the game's own technology. The same goes for some of the game's diegetic HUD elements. A diegetic HUD is an interface where the game's information like health, ammo or shields is integrated into the world itself. Early on, Monkey comments that he can suddenly see all kinds of data in his vision, and Trip explains that she added that information to the headband she'd put on him.
What the hell is all this stuff I can see?
I've hacked the headband to give you visual feedback. It's patched into your shield system and my biometrics.
Later, Monkey catches a mechanical dragonfly, and Trip tinkers with it to turn it into a scanning camera. From that point onward, you can see mines, mechs and objective markers. And one final touch I love is how the game doesn't rely on invisible walls to block you from straying too far from Trip.
You're leaving me behind.
Instead, your headband activates if you go beyond a certain distance, and if you don't return quickly, you die. It's a clever way to blend narrative and gameplay, and those small touches are what I really appreciated. This kind of subtle world building helps make everything feel more grounded and believable. I also want to highlight the game's visuals and music. Enslaved might not have been a technical marvel at the time of release, but it more than makes up for it with incredible art direction. Like I said in the intro, the 7th generation had a lot of games that looked brown and grey. In comes Enslaved, with bright colors bursting everywhere, sunlight cutting through ruined buildings, and nature slowly reclaiming what's left of the past. Even today, it stands out as one of the most visually distinct takes on the post-apocalypse. I do think the art direction peaks during the first half of the game. I'm less of a fan of the metal junkyard aesthetic in much of the second half. It works, but it's not as striking visually. While the game is loved by those who played it, I hear far too little praise for the music. Composer Nitin Sawhney perfectly matches the story's momentum with high energy, epic and tense tracks, while also creating more whimsical, carefree compositions that reflect the character's state. It's a truly masterful soundtrack that elevates the entire experience. But if there's one thing Enslaved will be remembered for, it's the story and its characters. Now let's finally dive into that. I'll start with a spoiler-free section and give a heads up before getting into major spoilers. The story itself is pretty straightforward. It's basically a long road trip through a hostile world. Whether it works or not depends entirely on the two leads, and thankfully their arcs are fantastic. Monkey starts off as a loner, practical, guarded and focused purely on survival. When Trip enslaves him, he's furious, but there's restraint behind that anger. He never truly loses control. Trip, on the other hand, begins fearful and naive, but also sharp and resourceful. She cares about others, and when she enslaves Monkey, it's out of desperation, not cruelty. They're both victims of circumstance. She knows it's wrong, but it feels like her only chance of getting home. In the early hours, the two clash a bit. Monkey makes it clear that if she wants to survive, she needs to trust him.
If we are gonna get through this, then when I ask you to do something, you need to do it immediately.
Okay. I understand.
And it doesn't take long before Trip starts asking for help instead of giving orders.
See the dragonflies? I need you to catch one.
What the hell are you talking about?
I'm not commanding you. I'm asking you.
Their bond grows slowly and naturally, and much of it happens outside of cutscenes. It's in the slower moments in between, where they simply talk and get to know each other.
I don't have a name.
You must. Everyone has a name.
Not everyone.
Well, what did your parents call you?
They were killed in a mech attack when I was a kid. I grew up in the wilds, alone.
Well, what do other people call you then?
Monkey. In the communities I trade with, some of them call me Monkey. If you want to give me a name, you can use that.
What I really love is how their relationship is reinforced through gameplay. You, as Monkey, can draw enemy fire so Trip can move safely, or, as I mentioned earlier, help her across gaps and ledges. There's something very physical about it. You're constantly interacting with her in small ways. And over time, I found myself carrying her, just because I wanted to, not because I had to. By around chapter 5, you can hear in Trip's voice that she genuinely cares about Monkey. It's no longer just about survival.
Monkey!
Stop shouting. It's not helping. You need to stay calm, okay?
Alright, I'm scared.
Monkey, realist that he is, quietly suspects there may be no one left in her village. But he never says it. You can see it in his expressions during the cutscenes leading up to it. He's preparing for the worst, but doesn't have the heart to tell her.
My father can be a little weird about strangers, so just let me do all the talking when we get there, okay?
Okay.
Oh, that's strange.
What?
Why have the security gates been activated?
So how do we get in?
Let's keep going to the lookout post. We just need to find a radio and they'll let us in.
That's where Enslaved really shines. Andy Serkis and Lindsay Shaw make these characters feel completely believable. On the surface, the game is bright and almost cartoony, but there's this quiet sadness beneath it all. It's both hopeful and grim, giving the story a tone I don't see very often. Later, they meet Pigsy, a loud, overconfident mechanic who brings plenty of humor to the journey.
So, Monkey, do you know what an ice cream is?
No.
Because you appear to have ice cream stuck on your head.
He sees Monkey as competition for Trip's attention. While he's mostly comic relief, there's a bit of heart under the bravado. And he adds a fun dynamic that keeps the story from feeling too heavy. And that's about as far as I can go without getting into major spoiler territory. So here's your spoiler warning. About halfway through the game, the duo arrives at Trip's village, and it's completely empty, not a soul in sight. They head to the watchtower, which Trip says is always manned. But when they get there, Monkey's worst fear is confirmed. Blood, destruction and charred bodies in the distance. Trip cannot face the truth just yet. She abandons all reason and ziplines straight into the village, desperate to find anyone still alive, even with pyramid mechs all over the village. When Monkey finally catches up to her, he finds Trip sitting outside her home, completely shattered. Everyone is gone. This is one of the game's most powerful moments in my opinion. You can really see how much they've influenced each other. Monkey, once impulsive and driven by survival, is now calm and rational. Trip, usually the careful one, is ruled by her instincts.
This was my home.
It's clear how deeply Monkey cares for her, despite a lifetime of being a loner.
The slavers came back. Destroyed everything. Just like you said.
Is there somewhere survivors could have retreated to?
There are not gonna be any survivors.
We don't know that.
A last glimmer of hope comes when Trip remembers the war room, a sealed bunker where her father might still be alive.
Show me.
But when they finally open its gates, it's too late. Trip's father has passed away. Her grief turns to anger, and she swears revenge on those responsible.
I said, get me home. I'll set you free. I guess I lied. The slavers come from the west. So that's where we're going. I want to find out who did this. And then I'm gonna kill him.
She breaks her promise to Monkey, leaving him no choice but to go with her to take Pyramid down. But the thing is, I think if she just asked, Monkey would have gone willingly by this point.
Whole life wiped out. You want to head back? I get it.
He doesn't even debate her on it, as he can easily see her point of view.
Everything is simple to you, isn't it?
It just is what it is.
Trip takes Monkey to see her father's old friend Pigsy. Pigsy tells them about a nearby mech base, building a giant machine called the Leviathan. And he's got a vehicle that can get them there, once it's fixed up. After putting it together, the three of them infiltrate the base, steal the Leviathan, and use it to storm Pyramid.
What's going on? That.
Pyramid.
Before getting to the ending, there's one more scene I have to talk about. It happens right after Monkey and Trip bring the Leviathan online. Up to this point, Trip's been carrying a lot of guilt for enslaving Monkey and for lying to him back at the village. And this is where she finally addresses it directly.
I've been wanting to talk to you, but there never seems to be a time. When I found my father dead. I'm not trying to excuse what I've done. I know it was wrong. I have no more right to enslave you than anyone does.
What have you done?
There's nothing controlling you anymore.
So I can just leave.
If that's what you want.
Turn it back on.
But I'm...
You heard what I just said. Turn it back on.
This moment can be interpreted in a lot of ways, and I think that's the beauty of it. To me, it's Monkey saying, I'm with you, choosing to stay with her, instead of going out there all by himself. And for Trip, it's no longer just about survival. It's about letting go of control, facing her guilt, and giving Monkey a choice. This is the first time the game really calls attention to these themes, but you can pick up on them all the way through, again thanks to the great voice and mocap work.
I ain't gonna let that happen.
In the final level, the trio take on a swarm of giant mechs using the Leviathan. The main cannon holds them off for a while, until one tears it off, which forces Monkey to finish the job. Now, completely defenseless, their backs are against the wall. Pigsy makes a big decision. He overloads the engines, turning the Leviathan into a giant bomb. He still has to steer it to its destination, which means there's no time to escape. Trip desperately tries to stop him, but Pigsy orders Monkey to get her out of there. They escape just in time to watch the Leviathan explode, taking Pigsy and all of Pyramid's mechs with it. I think Pigsy's sacrifice works from a storytelling standpoint, but the game never really made me care for him. He just doesn't get enough screen time for his death to really land. I know there's a DLC that dives into his backstory, but I want to judge the game on its own merits. And for me, his sacrifice just falls a little flat. And with that, it's finally time to talk about the ending. When I first played the game close to release, I really liked it. But as the years have gone by, I've become more mixed on it. Let's break it down. After all the mechs are destroyed, Monkey and Trip just waltz straight into Pyramid. I always felt like there should be one more mission, or at least a short cutscene of them reaching the main area. It feels a bit rushed. The game only had about half of Heavenly Sword's budget, so that might have something to do with it. When they enter Pyramid, they discover that the slaves are being controlled by a single man, Pyramid himself, also played by Andy Serkis. He's not hostile. He explains that he lived before the war, that he's been giving people peace by letting them live inside a simulation, a recreation of the world as he remembers it, before everything fell apart. In his mind, he's protecting them from the cruelty of the real world. It's basically the Matrix. Do you take the blue pill and live blissfully in an illusion, or take the red pill and face reality? The people here never got that choice. Throughout the game, Monkey has been seeing strange visions through his headband, short flashes he couldn't quite understand. It turns out they were fragments of Pyramid's memories. Pyramid then lets Monkey see the simulation for himself. For the first time, he's seeing a different kind of world. People living ordinary lives, unaware of the struggles of the wasteland. We, as the player, don't get to see what Monkey sees. His expression shows he's captivated, maybe even starting to understand Pyramid's perspective. But before he can say anything, Trip makes her choice. She kills Pyramid, shutting down the system and waking everyone from their illusion.
It's done.
There's this silence after it happens. No music, no big reaction, just the two of them standing there, unsure what to feel.
Did I do the right thing?
That's a question without a clear answer. A brilliant note to end on, if you ask me. I love the moral and existential questions the ending raises. It's not something a lot of action-adventure games tackled back then. It fits perfectly with the themes the game has been exploring: autonomy, free will, and control. But I think Pyramid himself is a little undercooked. Trip's village showed that people can live decently in the outside world, and Pyramid's robots could just as easily be used to build and maintain things. So why not help humanity rebuild instead of capturing people? It also doesn't seem sustainable. These people are trapped in a dream while their real bodies decay. Eventually, he'd just run out of people, right? The live action footage doesn't help much either. It looks kinda cheap and clashes with the game's otherwise stylized characters. And the reveal itself comes out of nowhere. There isn't much build up in the earlier chapters. Still, I appreciate what Ninja Theory was going for. The ideas are bold, even if the execution doesn't fully land. Games like Nier Automata would explore similar questions years later, and do it a lot better. But Enslaved was already trying to tackle these themes early on. So many threads are left dangling that it's obvious Ninja Theory hoped to continue the story in a sequel. Sadly, not enough people played Enslaved, and that sequel never happened. And that's Enslaved Odyssey to the West. A game that had all the right ingredients to be a big hit. Polished, cohesive, full of heart, and incredibly well-paced. It did things that games a decade later would be praised for. The Last of Us, Horizon Zero Dawn, a touch of Nier Automata, all before any of those even existed. The gameplay played it safe, and the ending leaves a lot to be desired. But still, this game deserved more. I feel for Ninja Theory. Their first 3 big games were all quality, yet none of them sold. In another timeline, they could have been as big as Naughty Dog, if the odds weren't so stacked against them. Forced to abandon their IPs again and again. I'm glad they finally went independent and found success with Hellblade. I hope I've done this game justice, because the story of Monkey and Trip is one I won't be forgetting anytime soon.
The truth is, we did it.
I'm gonna die here, aren't I? Just like everyone else did.
I ain't gonna let that happen.
big thanks to War Thunder for sponsoring the channel. It's free to play on PC, consoles and mobile, and you can check it out through the links in the description or pinned comment. If you're new or haven't played in the last 6 months, there's a limited time bonus pack on PC and consoles, packed with premium vehicles and in-game rewards. Don't miss it. Hey, thanks for watching all the way through. I had a ton of fun putting this video together and I hope you enjoyed it too. If you did, a like and a subscribe goes a long way. A huge thanks to my generous Patreons for their continued support. If you'd like to join them, the link to my Patreon is down in the description. And that's all for now. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.